for a heaven unknown. Lord, been lingering under still bodies. Lord, talk through Grandma Lung. Lord, her saving grace, her protection through pain, wants to pull me closer to pulpit. Can't see Lord in my darkest ditch. Sunday school and Veggie Tales don't tell of my lost hopes or lost youth under Lord eyelid. If evil exists under Lord, watch who I turn to when my time toiled. If I die for the skin you gave me, the hate your world maintains, then I don't want your heaven. I see black blood beneath your blessings. A lot of the times I kind of question the terror that comes into this world. The perception of the guy that I grew up with wouldn't allow these things to happen. And so I kind of question how these tragedies and how these injustices can coincide with a world where we say that God doesn't make mistakes.
The piece of art that I focused on the most was a digital creation of 3 Muslim women. Instead of lips on each of their faces, there is a phrase written on each face, and it's the traditional greeting in a Muslim country.
It talks about women condition in the Middle East, especially in a Muslim society. She did not draw the lips. That means the woman can't speak. This is right reflection of the society. The woman has no right in the Middle East to speak, and they don't have any freedom.
Is peace even possible? We really actually thrive in wars, and we always have greedy countries looking out for their own interests, and we always have poor, and so is peace ever really attainable?
But the Kurds made a system in the north of Syria that the woman and the men are equal, and they are free, and they have freedom.
I don't think we will be in a world without the homeless, without the poor, without the hungry until Christ comes back. It's really kind of depressing. Nonetheless, God has still called us to seek out peace, to be peacemakers. I don't need to strive for a goal where I'm like, oh, this will never be reached. Why even do it? Well, let's do it because God has called us to, that He has claimed this is our job.
The phrase "stop shooting" almost seemed to jump out of the picture.
It was interesting, the quote, I think, that one with that. They say that Jesus died for your sins, but He also died because the government killed Him.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, that's,
Whoa.
That's so true, right?
And in Christianity, we have a very strong idea of us being created in God's image. So I think that gets reflected in the racial diversity of the human race. If you pit one part of the human family against another or privilege one above the other, it seems to me you're offending the very one who created the human race.
Sometimes are very wary of committing to the idea of saying Black Lives Matter explicitly in any context, unconditionally to people. And I think that that's something that we need to become more comfortable doing.
Now, there are maybe ways of privileging that don't offend God. Namely, you privilege the other. You consider others as good as or better than you. That's kind of the Christian definition of love. That's exactly the opposite of how racism works.
Fully, honestly saying to people, Black Lives Matter, unconditionally, and that we want to work to make this a better life for you. We want to fight oppression and pain, and not using all lives matter as a way to sort of duck out of the responsibility we have to empathize with fellow human beings.
God tells the people, you can go out and harvest this bread, but don't take too much. You're not going to need it. There's still going to be bread tomorrow. Some people don't listen to that, and they just hoard some for the night. The next day it has maggots in it. He's like, what did I tell you? You don't need it. Stop taking more than you need.
I'd heard that story before, and connecting it to the pay gap, was an interesting, like, modern take on it.
The baseline was the white male at 100%, and then it went down with Asian American
Women.
And then what was the other ones on there?
I think it's Asian, white, black, Hispanic, Native.
If you don't have enough money, then you can't pay to maintain your health. You can't feed your kids. You're never free from anxiety. You never really rest.
Growing up in a middle class family, it's hard to like see the people that are like struggling, you know? You just want to help everybody, but it's so hard to help everybody. It should just be like the first thought in your mind to like help somebody else, like, but it's not here. It's how can I get ahead?
Initially when I saw it, I was a little defensive. I was like, well, if I work to where I am, does that mean I earned that 100%, or is it a fact that we're just living in an unequal society, and kind of how do I reconcile with the fact that there's someone who's making 37 cents for every dollar that on average the white male is?
It's hard to trust that you're going to be okay and you don't have to put things away for yourself or take more than you need so that other people don't get what they need.
The one about the Native American religious tradition and how the ancestors are very important to them, that really stood out to me too because of the effects of, slavery in America. That because of slavery, they didn't keep good records, and because of the impacts of slavery too, that lasted through generations, illiteracy and economic and social stagnation at the very bottom. Not a lot is known about people I came from.
I personally don't really feel any connection to my ancestry. I actually think that's an experience of a lot of white people. Mm-hmm. And I think that has a lot to do with kind of like capitalist, individualistic culture. What you have, you earned. And like when you have that kind of attitude of like, well, I made all of this, then like there's no point in looking back and being grateful for the people who came before you.
Yeah, I know it was weird to like struggle with that and be like, I don't know how many things about my ancestors that I like take pride in. Mm-hmm. I feel like so much more of it is things that my ancestors did that I am guilty about.
I know some people are really passionate about it. Like, we were robbed of our culture. I was robbed of my identity. And I always just kind of thought that this was an injustice in the past, sure, but we don't need to dwell on that, and we can live our lives as we are.
Like, I come from a very strong farming background. The work ethic piece in my family has always been like a really big deal. Like, I should have a job, just not necessarily because I need it, but because I need to be playing my part, and that you're kind of in that communal aspect. The idea that like you are good to everyone because we are all coming from different stories.
My dad used to always say that America wasn't a melting pot, it's more of a salad bowl. It's not something where people mesh together and bring their culture to form something new. That it's something where people bring disparate ideas from disparate cultures and just come together and tolerate each other. But I don't agree with that. We are Americans. We come from different places, sure, but we have a lot of things that unite us as a people. There are like certain things that we all can recognize like off the bat as Americans. That kind of shows how the melting pot should work.
In the image, God is this black woman holding the world, and I thought that was really provocative and really interesting, sort of like breaking down perhaps more traditional views of what God is like, and just sort of recognizing that God doesn't have a gender or a race.
I never thought of God as a certain gender, culture, or image.
Is it a he? I don't know.
In the Quran, God is genderless. Sometimes God is like depicted as a light or a feeling.
I see God in people, but I also see God in trees and cats and weird stuff.
Whenever I talk to God, I always look up, and then whatever is upwards is now my God, which is weird when you look up and it's at the ceiling and you're just like, oh, okay, I'm talking to a ceiling. But I mean, that's cool. I mean, you can talk to different colored ceilings.
When I'm thinking about praying and things like that, I tend to picture a more human form, just because it's easy to relate to that.
This is actually something I've kind of been thinking about a bit with the most recent Star Wars movie. Bear with me here. The Force is in all things, and it's more than that, it's also that connection between all things. That sounds like a great way for me to sort of describe God.
Maybe God is just a burning ball of gas in the sky, of goodness. I don't know.
That's a great image.
Yeah.
But I've also never felt like there was this other person who felt like they were greater than me. I never felt like God was any bigger or more important than me because I'm made, right? I'm born and I'm living. So I think God kind of sees me kind of like an equal or kind of like a friend.
We're in Hebrew school, they always tell you that you're not supposed to really put like a name or a face to God because it gets too close to like worshiping idols. So this idea of like instead comes up where God is everywhere and God is also nowhere, and it's kind of this weird like metaphysical argument. But I also like to think of like the inverse, where it's like God can be everywhere and everyone, and it kind of depends on who you ask.
I'm not especially drawn to the idea that God is whatever we want him or her to be. I think that God is who he/she/it is. But I think that God created race and gender speaks value to race and gender, because what God creates is good. There's something about those things that it reflects who he is. So though I think that God is raceless and genderless, that he created those things reveals that he values these sorts of things.
To be human is to love the humans around you and to work for those humans who are dehumanized.
Not only can we have coherent thoughts, we can have thoughts about thoughts.
I don't know, to have a soul is an odd concept. You know it's there, it's your like identity, it is your like being.
Like to me it means like community, love, supporting one another.
To create, to imagine, to innovate.
Ability to just sort of dream beyond immediate needs.
That ability to have a presence beyond just
ourselves
and just what's right here, right now.
To work together to make those dreams and thoughts into a reality.
The way I was going to sum it up was way more pessimistic though. You know, human beings are fallible, but we're the only ones that worry about ourselves being fallible. We're concerned about the layers of morality as opposed to just existing.
I think we can't imagine humanity if it's not in connection to God.
I think understanding that is also understanding the value that he has created us to have, and part of that value is our race, and that there is a tremendous amount of beauty in that diversity, yet we can all strive for peace.
Like, what is peace? And so for me, like when I think about peace, it's shalom, and shalom is completeness. So what does it mean to bring completeness and wholeness? As a Christian, I have to believe Yahweh is the only thing that can really bring wholeness.
If I can see how valued I am, and I can see, man, this person over here who has a completely different background from me is just as valued and just as adored and just as significant, and how can I come alongside them in their betterment? Even if they're a different race and even if they're a different faith, they're still so significant to God. And so let's be peacemakers.
I think humanity's good.
Good.
Yeah.
They're okay.
They're okay.
Yeah.